Over the past decades, a lot has changed. Since I was a child, we have gone through several technical revolutions, starting with the introduction of the World Wide Web, the invention of smartphones, and most recently, the public introduction to artificial intelligence or AI. Despite these enormous changes, our school system has barely changed over the course of the past few decades and fails to keep up regularly with these new developments. Besides that, the system fails to teach us about very basic skills that we all need once we leave school and start to deal with life on our own. Let me give you a quick example for this. When leaving high school, most of us are able to do complex mathematical calculations using all sorts of formulas, but on the other hand, we are unable to fill out our own tax declaration. This is why I will point out 5 things in this video that you must teach yourself that are not taught in school. The number one skill that you must teach yourself because it is not taught at school is how to manage your personal finances. How to manage our personal finances is one of the most important skills that we need to learn early on in our life. Whether or not we learn how to handle our personal finances at a very young age can have an enormous impact on our life and can change our whole life completely. Yet in our current school system, this aspect is completely neglected. We are not taught how to make a savings plan once we have a steady income, what costs and bills we have to expect once we move out of our home, what the basic concept of debt and leasing is, or how to invest our money in the long run. But these skills are absolutely crucial if we want to make sure to build wealth over time and by this gain financial security. Luckily today there is a whole lot of resources on the internet as well as many great books that allow us to learn what we need to know about personal finance management. But the first, most important step in this whole process is to recognize that we need to expand our financial knowledge and learn more about it every day. The second essential skill that we are not taught at school is a basic understanding of tax law. As it turns out, many people have little to no knowledge when it comes to tax law. In fact, they shudder at the thought of it. It is therefore no surprise that a lot of people, regardless of their professional background, are unable to simply fill out their tax declaration correctly. And by doing so, they are losing a lot of money. And this can either be the case because they simply don't know about all the tax deductions that they can claim, or because they have a tax expert fill out their tax declaration, although the large majority of them could simply get it done by themselves very easily and completely for free. And finally, the worst case is if people underestimate the amount of taxes that they owe and therefore risk having tax debt. While normal people suffer from the ordinary tax burden, people with a high net worth know exactly how to use tax benefits to their advantage to make sure that they pay as little taxes as possible, which then allows them to grow their net worth even further. They are able to do so because they took the time to learn how to have the relevant tax laws work in their favor, or because they paid somebody to teach them so. Learning and knowing the basics about tax law is therefore an essential skill that we must learn early on to make sure that we can use the legal advantages in our favor. A third very important aspect is the knowledge about what insurances we actually need to have. And as basic as this may sound, it is actually a lot harder than you would expect because a lot of us already have a lot of insurance. Insurance for our health, for instance, can be very basic insurance, supplementary insurance, or insurance for our teeth, for instance. Furthermore, we have insurance for our homes, cars, and some sort of liability insurance. People with children or spouses also often have a life insurance. For the eventual case of a bad accident at work or a severe illness, having an income compensation insurance or an income loss insurance can also be very important. In the case of a legal issue, we would need a legal protection insurance. And the problem with all these insurances is that overall they are actually quite expensive. We therefore must consider very carefully which ones we actually need. The issue is the following. If you have insurance that you don't actually need, you can easily lose hundreds if not thousands of dollars over the years. On the other hand, if you are in a situation in which you need an insurance and you don't have one or you don't have the right insurance, for instance, if you're unable to work for a longer period of time, you can easily lose even more money. It is therefore very important to find out what insurance we actually need and to compare different offers to make sure that we get the best deal. The fourth sort of knowledge that we must teach ourselves because it is not taught at school is the basics about how our social security systems work. That means learning about what's going to happen if we get older, sick, or if we lose our job, for instance. It is very important to know which rights we have in these kind of situations and how we can enforce them. It is also important to know how to prepare for these kind of situations in advance. Losing our jobs, getting sick, or having a bad accident is something that can very quickly happen to all of us, yet most people are completely overwhelmed by the situation and have no idea how to deal with it. Although they do have certain rights in these situations, such as, for instance, the right to draw unemployment benefits for a certain time, they don't do so, and by doing that, they start getting bigger and more financial and legal issues. It is therefore very important to know which legal rights you have in one of these scenarios and how you can actually claim them. And finally, number 5 is that we must learn about a healthy diet and regular exercise. Although we learn all sorts of things in school, such as math, languages, history, and biology, focusing on and prioritizing our health isn't really on the list, although it is probably the most important knowledge to gain in our life. Because if our health is affected, so is our well-being and every other aspect in our life, including our finances. In our younger years, many of us are typically very active and do lots of sports, and by doing so, they get by with pretty much eating whatever they want. But this changes over time as we get older. Once we get a job, many of us work at an office in front of a computer all day long. We therefore lack being active, but feel too tired to exercise after work. In addition to that, we feel like we don't have the time or the motivation to do much cooking, so we choose to eat convenience food instead, which tends to be very unhealthy. If we have one bad day like this, there probably won't be much of a bad impact on our life. However, if we do this over and over again, it develops into a routine and finally into a very unhealthy lifestyle, which over time, repeated day by day, will have an enormous impact on our health and on our life. It is therefore very important to learn how to break out of this circle. Learning about a healthy diet and how to prepare healthy meals quickly and easily is therefore a very important life skill. The same can be said about regular exercise. And regular exercise doesn't mean that you need to go to the gym 5 times a week and train for an hour, but instead it can be very simple things. It can start with taking the stairs instead of an elevator, riding your bike to work, or go for a quick walk over lunch. These little steps already contribute a lot to a healthier and therefore happier life. Since this was point number 5, I am wondering now what your thoughts about this topic are. Do you think that there are other areas in life that our schools need to teach more about? And if so, what are these? To mention one last point from my side, I think that our schools also don't teach us enough about how to successfully get a job once we graduate. This is why I will have 2 videos linked now in which I share some tips and tricks that I have learned when it comes to job applications. So if you want to learn more about it, make sure to check them out. Other than that, give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. If you would like to see more in the future, make sure to subscribe. Besides that, thank you guys for watching and I hope to be talking to you again soon.